Hey guys, welcome back to Garage Dads. We're here for Blake's part 2 of his story, where he discusses his book and all the trauma that he has dealt with and which has molded him into being the father that he is today. So kick back, grab a drink, and enjoy our chat of fatherhood. So I know that you have a couple books out.
Yes.
And your first one being your book that has a lot of stories about, from teaching and stories that you've heard from that, and then from your personal childhood. Could you kind of I just want to ask, tell us about how that all came about, and I know a lot of people are like, I could make a book out of my life, and you actually did.
I was at that point. I kept saying that, and I kept telling my wife I was going to write a book. And we kind of talked about this earlier. Well, shit or get off the pot. Let's do it,
Yeah.
And, she didn't put any pressure on me, but there's, if you're going to do it, let's do it.
Yeah.
But I would always start, I always get 10 pages in. I'm like, man, no, stop. Well, on Christmas break, I don't know, I was just kind of in a funk. I was kind of all over the place mentally. It was it was the winter after I stopped coaching for a little bit. And I was just in a funk, and I just grabbed the pencil and I started writing a little bit, and I'm like, man, I like this, and it just kept going. I wrote that whole thing in 2 weeks, all on Notepad. I still have it, but anyway, yeah, it was so raw that and I really didn't know if this was going to be any good or not. So I let my wife read it, and she's like, I think you got something here. Let's think on it. Let's maybe let someone else read it. I let Tina Scott take a look at it, and then
if anybody's gonna be honest, I didn't spend that much time around her, but I know that she didn't hold back.
Oh, she
tell you the
doesn't,
truth.
and that's why I respect the hell out of her, because there's friends that tell you the truth. Those are the type you want in your life. But she said, man, this is raw. This is good. And then I let my mom read it, and then she put her perspective on it. Man, this is really a lot of F words, a lot of, but I was fighting a battle inside I didn't know, because of my childhood, I guess you would say, trauma that I kind of buried for a very long time. I didn't want to talk about it, or I didn't want it brought up or anything, but I always wanted to write a story about the stories I have from school. So I decided to get an editor, and she was awesome. She was from Great Britain. We did a couple FaceTime chats, and it was really cool experience. And she wrote back and said, I don't know if you need to put a little different spin to it, make it a little more genuine. So then that's when I just kind of said, I just need to let my demons out, and let's just put it all on the table, and put some of my fears and my stuff that I've been fighting into the book, and that let's see what happens. And that's when I kind of brought the stuff up about my dad and stuff, and what happened when I was younger. And she loved it. She absolutely loved it. So it was kind of stories about some of the stuff we have to deal with, some of the stuff our students have to deal with, chopped up, put them in a blender, and then that was the book, including some of my stories that I had that were kind of burning inside of me for a very long time. But yeah, that's kind of the experience, and it was very therapeutic, and I thank God every day it happened, because honestly, before that I was in worse shape than I thought I was.
Yeah, you don't realize how dark it is.
I wrote that. Damn, Mom was in tears. My mom's a very Christian woman. Goes to church every Wednesday and Sunday. She's helping at the Nazarene and stuff. And she read it, and she's like, man, I think it kind of made her kind of second guess, did I do enough as a parent to help you? But it was just something I had to do on my own. And it just happened. It was a perfect storm, and it was great. And then I never thought that I got people stopping me at Walmart. Yo, you're Blake Kibler, you wrote that book. I'm the guy that wrote the book.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. Which is it's awesome. But, I don't know if I meant for it to be that way, but it was nice.
Yeah, I think you did fantastic. And like I said, told you earlier before we started, I was reading that book, and I felt like you were reading it to me. That's where I was like,
well, you got to put some of the Motown ebonics in it, some of that hillbilly twang.
Yeah.
kind of how we talk. But yeah, it was an awesome. People, ask me how long it took me to write that book. Probably 2 years.
Yeah.
Probably took me 8 months to write it fully, and then probably a month or a year and a couple months to edit it. Editing was brutal. Yeah, it was a fun experience. And I want to do it again, but I just haven't got. I got the right idea now. I'm just trying to get the ball rolling. With it.
I always think about that, and like with like people writing scripts and doing like short stories and stuff. It's creatively, I feel like I would have a lot of like thoughts for writing like a skit, but just being able to put it on paper and make it all make sense.
Yeah.
Like, I can come up with those like the random stuff that goes through my head. I could do that. Like I feel like I could contribute to something. just bouncing ideas and like those thought boards and stuff.
Yeah, it was as much as I disliked the editing, which it was fine. That's when the real magic happens. Like you start piecing things together. Some of the stories, it didn't start off like that, but they ended a little differently. Like it just made it polishes it.
Yeah.
That's when it really starts to come together.
And I feel like it's so hard to like write something and then read it.
Yes.
Because you read it no matter what. I've always believed that no matter what's on the paper, you're reading it like you want it to sound.
Absolutely. I took some advice from that editor. She told me to write it and then leave it alone for a month. Don't just try to forget about it. Yeah. And that really, really helped. Yeah,
that's one of my favorite parts about like reading a book, and it's like, I don't remember this, or watching a movie and thinking that too. So yeah, that was probably a good strategy to use
for sure.
I know that we had talked before, and just talking about the process of writing your book, and hopefully this will open up people to read it. I mean, I don't know very many people who haven't read it.
I appreciate it.
So
I mean,
it was something that like I said, I started, and getting crazy busy. It's easy to forget about it. If it makes you feel any better, I wasn't reading anybody else's book.
That's all right, man. That's all right.
I picked it up and started all over, and a lot of stuff I forgot. But just kind of, and stop me if anything is crossing, but just to kind of give everybody a background of, what you talk about with your stories. And I know that there's some that, you can read the first 3 pages of the book and realize, know that it was something to do with your dad and how that had to. So could you just kind of give a background, the people who haven't read it could kind of understand that and how you came to that process.
Yeah. My dad, I think I was a freshman in high school. My mom and dad had split when I was like 7th or 8th grade. And we had been going up to dad, who moved to Cincinnati. And my brother and I, we'd go up every other week. Long story short, he had killed somebody that was very close to us. And it was all, plotted, and, we, being a kid, I Google searched it and got all the scoop, the total investigation. And that was, I'll never forget the day Mom and my stepdad Jeff, my grandma Marianne, and Bill sat us down and said, broke it down to Jordy and I that your dad killed somebody. And we were just crushed. We were just crushed. Not only because it was our dad, but it's embarrassing. Honestly, it's an embarrassing thing. All your buddies are going to be talking about it. All the, and at that time, at that point in our life, we're trying to be cool. We're trying to, we're developing the social stuff. And, it was brutal. It was a brutal time. And, lucky for us, we had a very accepting, very welcoming community that just kind of wrapped their arms around us and said, it's going to be okay. They made it okay. And for a while, and I never really talked about that stuff. Like, never. Jordy didn't either. But, writing that book, well, there was a lot of nights I'd go to bed and I was pissed off because I was letting that demon out. There were times in my life where I feel like that those demons that, infested me through the stuff that my dad did, I feel like it came out. Like maybe I lashed out at somebody, or maybe, I was always pissed off at somebody complaining about something. But, but once I was able to channel it and let it out onto the pages, it just felt like a weight was being released off my chest. That last bit of that book is you know, it was my biggest nightmare. Like, you know, the girl in the story, and then Noah. Like, I always thought my dad would come back, kidnap Lauren. You know what I mean? Like, it was always a fear of mine. And, you know, the stuff about picking weeds and stuff like that, you know, we would go over to his house, and that's all we would do is pick weeds, pick thistle. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. So stuff like that, that's the stuff that kind of festered into the book. But yeah, that's kind of the rundown of it. Yeah, it's it's definitely been it's just uncharted territory.
Yeah.
For a lot of, you know, for you know, just us telling the kids, like, you know, I had to sit down and tell my oldest two, like, you know, Papaw Jeff, you know, he's our Papaw. He is our Papaw. He's our dude. He's our guy. But you do have a blood Papaw, Grandpa, and he's, you know, he did this, and he's in prison. He's not getting out. So, and they're, you know, they took it, and I don't think they knew what to do. Like, okay, you know, type of thing. But it was, again, it's kind of embarrassing a little bit. And it's kind of an uncomfortable thing to talk about.
Yeah, and like I said, if there's a line and I cross it, I'm good with you. Tell me, I'm good.
You know me, I don't have very many lines to cross. I'm an open book.
So you said you were a freshman, so Jordy would have been what, 7th grade?
Yeah.
See, 2 years younger than at what point? How old were you when your mom and dad split up?
I think it was 7th grade, 6th or 7th grade.
Yeah.
Some middle school age.
Yeah. So roughly around that point.
Yeah.
And then he moved to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
How was your guys' relationship in between, you know, 6th, 7th grade and, you know,
with my dad? It was weird. It was fine. You know, we're just kind of, I don't know if it's the dude in us or what, but we just, you know, and honestly, that's how we got pretty good at basketball, is because we go down to Cincinnati and we go play with the brothers, and, you know, and we play some crazy pickup games with them, and, you know, they taught us a lot and stuff. And, you know, Dad was, you know, he wasn't around much when we were there. I do know that. But yeah, the relationship was a little sketchy. We knew we were safe, I guess you could say that, but it was just, something was off.
When he was around, was it good, or was it always just kind of...
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
He put on a pretty good poker face, for sure.
Yeah. And how was... I guess I just think about that and just kind of having that within your book, you know, and all the terrible things that Noah's dad did, and how, you know, he still accepted his dad back. And we see that a lot of times with kids who, you know, were abused, or they were in foster care, or they were this and that.
Yeah. It's sad. It gives me chills, you know, because I've seen kids get ripped away by Children's Services right there on the spot. They take them because something that bad happens. They rip them out of school, but they can't wait to go visit their mom or dad. It breaks my heart, because I think deep down they want more than anything just to be with their mom and dad. Yeah. You know, the people that brought them in this world, you know.
That's the only thing they ever loved. And it's, you know, it's hard to wrap your mind around, like, you don't, that's a monster. But they just like, that was the only, that's your mom or your dad, that, like, you loved that, that's who brought you into the world. That's all you know, that's all you've loved. Like, I guess just, you know, thinking about that, how was, you know, things initially? Was it like, I know, being younger, it's hard to wrap, you know, your head around, and being an adult now, it's like, were you guys close enough where it was defensive, like my dad would have never done that? Or did you have suspicions of...
Honestly, we were in denial at first, like, about it, because, you know, he was a, you know, outside, he seemed like a very happy-go-lucky guy. Like, he just, you know, he just snapped, or I really think I mean, obviously, he was fighting demons that he's been battling probably and never dealt with them, and he snapped, and yeah, like I said, he never really was physically abusive to us. Like, there was a lot of neglect, but I mean, not physically abusive or anything like that.
And it sounds like, even though, like, neglect, probably like emotional neglect, you guys were, you know, taken care of and able to do stuff when you were there, but that still doesn't make it any better. Have you, I know in your book you referenced that, you know, he said some pretty shitty things, let's be honest. In letters. Have you ever went to see him, or ever had any communication with him since?
I went when I was younger. and it was fine. And you're a kid. You're and mom never made it a problem. If you want to go see him, I'll drop everything I'm doing. Let's go see him. And and she could have went on the other end and said, "You're not seeing that son of a gun."
Yeah.
Heck no. Like, well, I'm not taking you there. She didn't do that at all.
Yeah.
And very supportive in that aspect. But no, I mean, I saw him when it first initially happened. We went and saw him, and then he started, we took a little longer to go see him again, and then he started sending me nasty letters. Like, calling me a piece of shit son and all kinds of stuff. And mom said, she still has letters that he sent me that she won't let me see.
Yeah.
And that about broke me. That almost broke me more than the initial thing that happened. Because again, I'm trying to process all this, and then you're calling me a piece of shit son.
Yeah.
On top of all the other stuff that's just
being
happened.
a kid. Like, yeah, you're a high schooler, but you're still a kid.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't know how to deal with that. So I know that's really tough, and I've luckily never had to, and I hope I never do have anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, that was something else too that I never talked about. I never wanted to talk about, but it ended up coming out into the pages a little bit.
Yeah, and that's you definitely, your story is raw, and there's fiction too.
For sure. Yeah.
But you can read and feel the emotional connection that this. And after I read maybe 50 pages of it, I looked at Alyssa and I said, was like, this is like some of the stuff that was happening to him. Like, I've heard those stories, but Blake's not making this stuff up.
No, not one story in there is made up.
Yeah.
It's all real, and it's scary. That's the scary part, and that's not even scratching the surface of the stories. The stories we still have to tell. I mean, and like I said, I've been working on something kind of more of in a teacher perspective of how we process that as a teacher, like. A kid that we're trying to reach is being sexually molested, or, dad's beating the shit out of them when they get home. How do we process that as a teacher? Like, at first, as a, not a rookie, I got, 2 or 3 years in, it's hard to process. I took it to heart, and there'd be times where I go home and I hear these stories and I'd be crying. It's just like, man, and it's tough.
I know that exact feeling, because I probably called you about. Because it happened to me within my first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, I got to student teaching in December and started it in January.
Yeah.
The end of December. And by February, something had already happened, and I was reporting children's services. Like, it put me through a world. Like, I had to learn how to, like, leave things at school.
That's tough.
Especially in that scenario, that was the hardest one I ever had, and that was within my first 2 weeks. I hope nothing ever tops it. It was easy.
It's so hard to leave that stuff at school because it's not take it home with you, because that's your life. I mean, that's your career, right? That's your life. You're supposed to, I don't care what anyone says. You get attached to those kids. You love those kids.
You still care.
You still care. And when something crazy's happened like that to them, and then calling children's services, that's a traumatic thing in itself. That's a hard thing to do, Yeah,
it's something you have to do, but essentially you're going to flip these kids' world upside down. Yeah. The sad thing is there's occasions where they're not telling the truth.
Yeah, for sure.
Or, you're reading something wrong, and it's like, but you have to do your due diligence is you have to call and report that.
Yeah.
I've always been honest with you. It took me a while to read it, but like I said, I'm not reading anybody else's book. I literally, as soon as I finished it, I was like, that all makes so much more sense. And then you start to feel I don't want to say guilty, but it's just like you feel bad because you didn't know what someone was going through, and missing that and knowing that, it was good, man. It was good. You're great at that. I wish that it wasn't all I wish that story was 100% fiction.
Yeah, I do too. And there's a part where his dog gets shot right in front of him. I will never forget that story being told to me. And I couldn't. Being a young kid, especially, a kid with a learning disability or cognitive disability, maybe has autism or whatever, experiencing that, it would, it'd be wild.
Some things were tough to read just from that aspect. It was a great story. You wrote it awesome because, like I said, I feel like you could have read it like Matthew McConaughey read Greenlight. Like it was just exactly in his words, just like it was yours. But I guess just kind of thinking about that and all the things and some of the stories being true to you and your experiences growing up, and the things you had to deal with what happened, and I guess too thinking about hearing some of the stories that your students have went through, but more along the lines of like what your dad put you through.
Yeah.
Did that give you any hesitations or cause anything when you were having kids? I guess I'll give you the spin on why I'm asking this question. Was when my dad passed away, he was 52.
Yeah.
I was like, it still like eats at me, but life moves on.
Yeah, for sure.
And it took me a while. I mean, I didn't have my first kid till I was 29.
Yeah.
Which is late compared to a lot of others.
Hey, better late than never. But
And I think the idea of like dying on my kids, that ate me away. Like I was like, I'm never having kids because I'm gonna die. So I guess that is kind of the angle to that question about, did that give you any hesitations about having kids, or was that tough when you were having kids?
Yeah, there was at times, I don't do it now, but there was times where I put a lot of pressure on myself to make sure I'm doing everything precise, doing everything right, maybe putting a little added pressure onto them to maybe, because like you said, that does stick with you in the back. It's in the back of your head a little bit, Big thing is now, with the kind of the mental health thing, kind of, especially coming through the book, just having an open mind with my kid, is there something that you're struggling with that you want to talk about? Just being there for them mentally, because again, the world is brutal. And again, I do feel like my dad was fighting something. He unleashed it the worst way imaginable.
The worst way.
But, just keeping that door open for my boys. You don't have to be the tough guy all the time. But earlier on, I was, I would catch myself putting a lot of pressure and just trying to be the perfect dad, when in reality, I just need to listen. I just need to listen, and again, shut the hell up. Let them talk. And my wife's got I kind of get into you ever watch The Office?
A little bit.
Like Michael Scott, man, he gets, I kind of get wild in these stories and get a little crazy. But, and my wife's really good at, Blake, just let them talk. Mm-hmm. Just letting them talk and, being there for them, and just trying to help them through this crazy life that we're living. And just trying to keep in perspective that, that's him. He didn't, my kids aren't going to do that. I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? Just trying to separate that from them. And just, somebody made a really bad choice, and then that they were battling something that, that they couldn't handle until, again, they just made that horrible choice. But just trying to be an open book. Yeah. And open with my kids.
Yeah. That's solid. Yeah. And it's definitely allowing them to let things out.
Yeah.
And you have to show them a little bit of, I mean, you're probably experiencing more than me, but like vulnerability, that it's okay. And that's, but I feel like when I was a kid, and I don't know if yours was different or the same, it was like, when that's there, if you got a problem, just bury that bad boy down in the chest, and then dig it down, and then dig deeper. That it was a long time until I was able to like open up on stuff, and I was able to cry without worrying about somebody making fun of me.
For sure.
And that's tough for kids, and that goes into adulthood.
My mom and stepdad were really good. Like later in life, they're really good at, they're open books. We can, we'll cuss, we'll scream, just whatever you need. Whatever you need to talk about something, let's talk about it. Nothing offends them. Everything's pretty good. So we just try to keep that, as long as it's not something, some wild ass.
Like I said, there is a line.
There is a line. But just trying to be an open book and just being there for them. Because again, I think my dad, his dad committed suicide, and I'm pretty sure his dad, just that mental health perspective, like it is a little bit scary. So I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong, just
Do you think, I mean, just now that you've became more comfortable with talking about this, and you're it kind of feels like you're free.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I can breathe. And honestly, I feel myself not taking myself so seriously.
Yeah.
I always felt like I'm trying to be this perfect male, and it's just, this is dumb. It's just so dumb. I don't know. I don't know why it took that to get off my chest for me to just not take myself seriously, or just I feel 10 times better for sure.
Do you think if you had the chance, you'd ever talk to your dad again?
That's something that I've talked to my wife about several times, and probably not. Probably not. I'm just past that point in my life to where, I've forgiven him for myself. You know what I mean? Like, I've forgiven him, not, for what he did, for me, for my self-healing. So I can move on.
Yeah, I think that's a solid thing you painted in your book, was like, forgiving someone is not forgetting what they did or saying it's right. But sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. No, like I said, I'll never forget what he did. Forgiving him allowed me to move on. It's forgiving someone, can be a little construed, but I understand. I get it. It allowed me to have a little peace.
And if you were, have you ever thought about that, like what you would say?
Oh yeah. Just why? 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 I mean, all the thoughts in your head, and you're choosing to, leave the two things you are, were insured to protect. Like, you're leaving them. Like, you made that one choice to totally, pretty much abandon us. For your own selfish reason. It's that, that's a hard pill to swallow, honestly. Like we talked about earlier, this person that brought you into this world that's supposed to ensure your safety and be there for you and, help you through the tough times, put it all on the line by making one awful choice. And
then didn't help to make anything better. Like, he didn't have to choose the way that he handled it. From then, you guys could still have a relationship now.
For sure. And like I said, my mom did not, God love her, she did not want to, but if you want to see your dad, I will, as much as I dislike that man, I will take you to go see him. But we just chose, not to. It's just.
And that's your right. And it sounds like he let you know that he didn't like it. And I would say that he's going to be in there for forever. It's he's never going to see, that's not going away what he did, but he's never going to have a chance to know any more about you or Jordy or his grandkids or anything. And he made that choice too. And that choice I've thought a lot about since we talked about this interview, and kind of having somewhat of an idea of what went on. It's just kind of like, it's heartbreaking on that aspect too, because like my dad passed away, and I don't hold anything against him, but he, then there is no chance for my kids to see him. But like, it would have been very different, but he made that decision and chose to abandon you twice.
Pretty much.
So I'm sorry that you had to go through that.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, honestly, it made me the man I am today. And honestly, it makes me feel for these kids that come into your life that are, let's face it, most of them have daddy issues for the most part. It's, especially the boys, like the males, they gravitate, genetically they gravitate toward the male, like the dad, and it's, for them not to be in their life or to be a positive light, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for them. And like you said, and they still, it don't matter what they've done to them, they still gravitate to the mom and dad. And that's something that it's hard for us teachers to wrap around.
It's hard to understand. It's hard to, but we all experience things differently. And I know that can get to be really tough. And, we can almost kind of get upset with the kid. Like, why would you think that?
Exactly. Like, I have. Like, what are you doing?
When that's the only person who's ever loved you.
For sure.
And it takes a lot. Well, we will we'll move on to the next portion, but thanks for sharing all that. I know it's not easy. I'm sure that it's gotten a little easier with the book and with answering these questions before, I'm sure, but I'm glad that you were able to use that to let it out. You were able to tell your story, and it sounds like I think everybody around here's read it. So I assume it was a top seller on Amazon, and
for a couple weeks. And like I said, I appreciate it. I thank God every day.
And I know
was able to do it.
you have a second book out now, right?
Yeah, and it's called The Lighter Side of Gray. It's more of smaller, short stories that I kind of wrote when I had COVID. When, COVID was like the Black Plague. And I wrote another longer story about, it was kind of gravitated toward, there's another fear of mine if I did lose my wife, what would happen type of thing. I don't think, I was pretty happy with it, but not like I was with Time Served.
Yeah.
And I'm still proud of it. I mean, I wrote a little piece about my step-grandma, Marilyn Halke, in there, and how she was there for us when we needed her. And, she's not with us anymore, but she definitely shedded a light in our lives when we needed her. And it's called The White Rocking Chair. I mean, I still have her white rocking chair. That was something that was gifted to me when she passed, because she'd be always on her porch rocking that white Cracker Barrel rocking chair, baby. And we'd tell a lot of stories, but yeah, and I like the spooky stuff, so I dipped a little bit into some of the horror elements.
Yeah.
So it was just me kind of experimenting where I want to go. I have wrote like 2 or 3 other pieces, but my goal, and I probably won't self-publish again. I'll probably try to sell a piece to like New York or something. It's a pipe dream, but it's something that I won't be satisfied with until I do it. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's that's why they're called dreams, man. You gotta shoot for something.
Yeah.
Might as well shoot for the top.
I tell you, with Time Served, I did have someone reach back out to me. Eventually, it didn't work out, but that was a pretty cool, exciting experience just to know that they liked it, but it just didn't fit what they were working with at the time. And that's a whole process in itself. You gotta find a literacy agent to take it, and then they gotta sell it to Penguin House or Scribner or something like that, one of the big publishing companies.
Yeah. So you're talking about publishing through a big company.
Yes.
Okay. I was like, I didn't know if you were like talking about it being a movie, because I'm like, that would be.
No.
I mean, that'd be a good movie.
Oh,
it
yeah,
would definitely,
for sure.
It would definitely be rated R. But
definitely rated R.
But it would be a good one that's hard to watch, but it would put things in a lot of perspective, just like reading the book. Awesome. Thanks again for sharing all that. I loved your book.
I appreciate it, man.
Definitely have to get into the other one, and I'm excited to hear some more of your short stories and other ideas. And I love when you put little stuff out there. But just that kind of takes me on to my next one. I know you were talking about your what'd you say, Granny Halke?
Yeah.
And the white rocking chair, and how she was just kind of one of our standard garage dad questions. When you are, dead and gone, and your boys are sitting around talking about you, and hopefully it's good. Hopefully it's all good. What legacy do you want to leave with them? How do you want to be remembered by all of them?
Legacy, for sure, just that someone was a good person. I just want to be known as a good person, someone that was selfless. And, I strive to be that every day. Sometimes it gets hard, but just to be selfless, a selfless human being. That's kind of my legacy in a nutshell. Someone that was easy to talk to, someone that was, a ding-dong when he needed to be, just a selfless human being. And I'd be pretty satisfied with that.
Yeah, that's I like that. That's solid. Sweet, man. I was literally just processing that, because I was like, you never know what people are going to say. I mean, with that being one of the standard questions, it's like, you think about what you're going to say, and I'm just like, I'm
just selfless. I was raised that way. I was, my mom's very selfless, you should see, with the she always tells me, she loved having kids, but she really loves having grandkids.
So
man, my gosh. But she would do anything to make someone smile. She really would. But yeah, being selfless, hardworking, of course, but yeah, being a selfless human being.
Yeah, and I think that's too. In your case, it was your mom.
And also my stepdad, too. He will go down as the most selfless human being I've ever known.
Yeah.
He would do anything for you.
Yeah.
He'd say, okay, honey, whatever you need.
Whatever you need. And I think that's just kind of thinking about, dads in general, your kids are looking to you. You're the bar that is set, And that's why, you know, the kind of trickle down effect about, we see it a lot with like low socioeconomic and disabilities,
Yeah.
and how that trickles down. It's like your mom and dad were that way.
Yep.
Then we see them out of high school and it's like,
Yep.
yeah, I don't have a job and
Yeah.
I'm doing
The
this. And I got
cards are
4
already
kids.
stacked against them.
So it's like, I think it's so critical for us to make sure that we're setting a good example
Yeah.
for our kids and
Yeah.
leaving that legacy about this is the expectation of what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to act. But yeah, that's selfless is definitely it's a good quality, and I don't know your mom and stepdad. I know who they are,
Yeah.
but I definitely can tell that would be a very great word to describe you, and hopefully that passes
appreciate it,
that
man.
passes down to your kids. I've always looked up to you, and
I appreciate it.
I don't think I've ever said a bad word about you. And I mean,
It's all right if you did.
and I mean, if I did, I'd probably tell you, but just don't bring any of that jujitsu out on me.
Oh gosh, man, I would love to get back into that, but I don't think my right knee could take it, and my wife would literally, have
Yeah.
my head.
Yeah,
But I love that stuff.
Yeah.
That's some good stuff to get into.
that's something I always like. I wish I would have done, but I would have be dead now if I did. Like I couldn't. I'd be the
It's-
guy who's like walking out with.
It's such a humbling experience because I go in there, I'm 6'4", 250, 260, and I'm getting manhandled by a guy that's 5'6", 5'7", 150 pounds. He's
Yeah.
just destroying me.
Yeah.
He tapped me out 17 times. I don't even know what he was doing. I just knew it hurt. I just started tapping.
It hurt enough to
Yeah,
tap.
like he just, man, yeah. That jiu-jitsu stuff was a good time.
Yeah.
And get you in great shape too, man,
Yeah,
for sure.
I'll do it again at the end, but this is
Yeah.
how that thankful, and like literally I was like excited when you text me and you're like Tuesday. I was like tomorrow Tuesday, and so thanks for coming down here.
No
I
problem,
know it's
bud.
I know it's summertime, so we're a little more free, and that was the problem. But you did take some time away from your kids and your wife, and I really appreciate that.
Anything for you, man.
You're a person I've always looked up to. I've
Yeah.
professionally and personally, and
I
always
appreciate that.
try to stay in touch the best
Yeah.
we could. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing your stories. I know.
Thank you for doing this, man. This is awesome. I love it. I
Yeah.
couldn't wait to get on here. Just finding the time.
It's tough.
It's tough.
It's tough.
I've watched them all, listened to them all.
Well, thanks, man.
all,
I hope that
Yeah.
people continue to listen. It's like I've said, I don't anticipate everybody's like, you trying to be the next Joe Rogan? That would be awesome, but that's not my go. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I appreciate it, but I genuinely do. I am thankful when everybody listens. That people say, "Hey, I listen to your podcast." Usually, people,
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect it, but
Yeah.
thanks for coming down for it.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Our standard finishing garage dad question is, who would you say is the person you look to for advice, guidance? That could be. It doesn't have to be specifically for parenting advice, but just in life. Who would you say is your dad role model?
My dad role model is definitely my mom and my stepdad. Like I said before, it's literally an open door. If I had something going on right now, they would, God love them, they're probably in bed right now, but they would get up and they would talk. If it wasn't for them two, I would not be here. My stepdad coming into our lives after all that happened, he stepped up in a big way. Like, he made the transition of, I'm your dad. We don't call him dad, but because I always told him, you're more of a dad to me. You're like my best friend, dude. Like, he saved us. He saved my life. But he made the transition of, all that so smooth. I thank God for him every day.
Yeah.
Because, he's so easy to talk to. So easy to talk to. He might drop a couple F-bombs here and there. I do too. But he's definitely a good Christian man that I look up to big time in a big way. I even find myself, even we're not blood, I even find myself parenting like him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or acting like him.
Yeah.
Because he just kind of has that fun dad type persona to him, that all the grandkids love him and they love to get him going. Oh, grandpa said that, papa said this, or and yeah. Then, mom, early on, she had to be mom and dad.
Yeah.
You know, and when mom and dad, my real mom and dad were together, he was doing whatever, and mom was cutting hair from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. But she always made sure we had, you know, Jordans and stuff to play good shoes to play basketball in, or, you know, the nice clothes or stuff like that. She was the one that gave us the talk. And you know, my stepdad elaborated on them much further later on in life. But yeah, those two are for sure are my role models.
Yeah, and I think I know that just kind of reading in the book and hearing, you know, your character that you compared to your stepdad in the story, and seeing like how important that was and how we look up to our parents. And I mean, I genuinely believe that even though my dad's not here, I feel like I can see that I'm just like him, and I act like him, and I parent like him. And you know, I try not to do everything exactly the same, because I look and I'm like, that's probably wasn't the best thing. But I think it's that we learn from our parents so much. And in your case, you know, had him step up.
He just stepped up. I mean, it was so smooth. I hate to say it, like, it almost felt like I never, you know, always felt like I had a dad in a sense. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
He, you know, he was always there. Like, he's always at all my basketball games. He's God love him. He's at, you know, he's all over the place.
Yeah.
Trying to support the grandchildren, and we just lucked out. I mean, we lucked out. He's, like I said, he's one of the best human beings I've ever met.
Yeah. That's awesome, and it sounds like he filled in right at the right time, and like you said, you thank God for him every day, and he seems like I know who he is, I don't know him, so, but he seems like a great person, and I'm thankful after reading all that. I mean, I'm thankful that he was able to step in for you, and I know that you definitely are too, and those are two great dad role models. You know, one of them's a mom, but she had to play both. So.
She did. I mean, and the thing is, with mom, you know, she never let what happened with my dad, she never let Jory or I use it as a crutch.
Yeah.
If that makes sense? Like, don't use it as a crutch. Use it as fuel. Use it as, you know, I want to be better. Like, that type of mentality. And, you know, like I said, she had to fill the dad role a lot. And I don't think she ever missed a basketball game. And I don't think,
And that's, I mean, that's tough. But
we played a lot. We played a lot
with what she does, and never missing.
Never.
And that's tough, and kids remember that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So that's great. Again, Blake, thank you so much for coming down.
Oh, no, anything for you, man.
You know,
when we kind of first met, you were student teaching for me, and you know, Tina and I both said that, you know, because we had a couple other student teachers that were pretty good, but you were like, the kids loved you, and like, you just had it. You just had it, man.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
I think you're an awesome dad and awesome teacher.
Yeah.
Sounds like too. So
one of the biggest things I learned from you was like how to relate to kids. Like, this dude can relate to any kids, and I'm like, I don't know how he does it. And then it was just like, it was nice because I was able to sit back and watch you. And then it got to the point where I was like, hey, Blake, can I do?
Yeah,
like,
go for it.
We're 3 weeks into student teaching. You're like, you ready? I'm like, yeah. You're like, take it. And so it was definitely, it was the right process, and I learned a ton, and you trusted me, and I thank you for that.
No,
because I know now, being a teacher, it's like, I would have a hard time just trusting somebody to come in and take over.
Oh, that's all right, man. That's all right.
Thank you, thank you for that too.
No.
Especially thank you for
a pleasure
coming on and being part of the Garage Dad podcast.
No, man, it's awesome.
It's always awesome catching up.
Rex arms.
That's how we know we're getting old. But thank you, and thank you everybody out there for listening to the Garage Dad podcast. Thanks, guys. Peace.